Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, this one is going to be quick. I just want to have a word on something. So, last night, let me check my volume, make sure I'm up. Last night, I was covering the missile strikes. There we are. I was covering the missile strikes that was taking place in Syria. Israel did one of the most extensive bombing campaigns that it's done ever, but at the very least in years, in Syria, attacking Iranian installations. Russia said that some of those missiles were shot down. We don't necessarily know what's true in this case. People always say that they're shooting their missiles down. It makes their military look good, and it makes their people feel better. But we don't necessarily know the reality of what's taking place with regards to the events that are going on. So the news comes out. 20 missiles, 20 rockets fired. Israel responds with overwhelming force. The media comes out immediately. Iran fires rockets. Iran fires rockets. Iran attacks Israel. Iran attacks Israel. Now, mind you, Israel has stolen the Golan Heights, and they've been militarily occupying that particular part of land for like the last 50 years. But whatever. They're calling it Israeli occupied territory. That makes it sound nice. It makes the whole apartheid thing sounds a little bit better. But Iran attacks Israeli territory. That's the way that it's been put out in the news. Iran attacks Israeli territory. And Israel immediately, almost on the dot, responded with this kind of overwhelming force. Just to show you what I mean, take a look at this. Last night, I was looking up the story. I was doing research on multiple articles. Israel and Iran trade fire in most direct confrontation. Yes, CNN. Telegraph. Israel strikes back against Syrian targets and threatens storm in Iran and after Golan Heights. Now, mind you, the whole Israel strikes back thing, Israel has been attacking Syria for days. So the idea, like in destroying Iranian institutions in Syria for days, they've been escalating on this over and over and over again. The whole point of Iran saying we're going to retaliate is because Israel has been attacking Iranian things. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to yell, but there's a certain dishonesty in the way that they're reporting this story. Israel attacks back as if Israel was the part. It's as if I come up and punch you in the nose, and you come back and punch me, and I come back and hit you in the eye, and everybody points and says, yeah, dude, you shouldn't have hit him back. You should not have hit him back. It was wrong for you to hit him back. It was wrong for you to hit him back. We don't want you hitting him back. It's like, but he hit me in the fucking nose. Now, beyond that point, beyond the whole, the way they're doing this story and the fairness associated with it, let's just throw fairness out the window and objectivity out the window, context out the window. Even the honesty of it. Let's take a look. Let's keep going, because I want to make a point. Israel launched most extensive strike in Syria in decades after Iranian rocket barrage. Iran fires rockets in Golan Heights. Let's see, that's Israel launches most extensive strike. This is Haaretz. Israel retaliates after Iran fires 20 rockets into occupied. That's The Guardian. The Express. World War III fear. Israel reacts to Iran and strikes back after 20 rockets. Louder Crowder, he's ridiculous. Iranian forces fire rockets at Israeli military in first direct attack ever. Iranian forces fired 20 rockets at Israel, Iron Dome intercept some. Those missiles landed in nowhere. How do they know? How do they know? I don't ask that question in some kind of esoteric way. I ask it from a standpoint of evidence and information. How do they know? This happened immediately, and all of these stories started to come out. One story feeding off the next. How do they know that this is true? The information that they're getting from this is entirely from the Israelis, from the Israeli military. This is the same military that were out there shooting people in the head, in the knees, in the legs, or in the groin. Protesters, peaceful protesters. Some of them had rocks, but ultimately snipers shooting these people and killing these people. And it's considering this kind of, yeah, we did great work out there today. We know where each one of those bullets landed. Yeah, it landed in people's heads, knees, and groins, including murdering many journalists who were out there covering the story, had press written across their chests. Didn't stop the Israeli military from murdering those people at all. The military, when you ask them about it, we carried out an operation in order to stop these violent thug protesters who were pushed by Hamas in order to do this. This is nonsense. They were making that shit up in order to be able to attack and kill those protesters. Why would you take the word, purely the word, from an organization that is willing to murder people in the way that these people are willing to murder people? This is the same military that mowed down nearly 2,000 Palestinians, dropping dumb bombs in crowded areas and crowded locations. 80% of the people that the Israeli military murdered were civilians. They justified this by Netanyahu coming out saying, well, they were using telegenically dead Palestinians. I never forget the term. It was fucking amazing. Telegenically dead Palestinians. He killed 80% of those people that were out there. They weren't trying to use munitions to try to prevent them. When you look at breaking the set or breaking the silence, they talk about how they were saying if anybody is in this area, they're fair game. If somebody is in this area, they're fair game. Shoot first. Figure the shit out later. And based on the military policies that they were using, 80% were civilians. You go to places like Turkey, where they were making the point of Erdogan saying, yeah, we have a pretext. Whatever you need to do in Syria, we can come up with a pretext using Al-Qaeda as the affiliation or as a pretext and justification to do whatever we need to do. False flag attack. Erdogan flipped out, shut down the internet. We ourselves have our own false flag attacks. The United States painting the flag on the side of a plane, and if that plane gets shot down, to be able to use a pretext to go into Iraq. Same thing in Florida, where they were looking for a pretext for Cuba. Same thing with the Gulf of Tonkin. Same thing with the newspapers creating whole cloth in order to go for the Spanish-American War. Countries lie. Netanyahu continuously saying Iran is 3 years from a bomb, going all the way back to 1992. Iran standing, Netanyahu sitting in front of Congress, lying through his teeth, profusely lying through his teeth, without any shame at all, saying that we need to invade Iraq. We'd be considered conquerors and great people, and it would make Iraq this awesome place. The guy's a known and habitual liar. Complete liar. The recent story that Netanyahu did was roundly debunked by the entirety of the world, with the reality show host being the person who was saying, yeah, that sounds about right to me, but everybody else who was in the know, everybody else who had any stake in the deal, everybody else who was somewhat of an independent observer said Netanyahu was lying through his teeth. And yet, this is a right-wing maniac government that's coming out saying 20 rockets are fired. And this entire media establishment in the West says, well, they've been credible and honest in every other situation, so let's just completely believe them now. I went through multiple articles last night, and the one thing that those articles didn't say is, was it true? If you're writing a headline, most people only read the headlines. And beyond most people only reading the headlines, if you say, Israel said this, people don't really make that association of they could be lying. They're taking it as the very fact that you're writing this article that you yourself have some kind of knowledge. You yourself have some kind of objective point of view about what you're analyzing or what you're getting into. And the fact is you don't. All of this is taking Israel's side of this. All of this is taking what Israel is saying and it's taking this as if what Israel's saying is the word of goddamn God. And it is an amazing thing to watch where you're looking at this and I'm like, yeah, but what did Iran say? Did Iran say they did it? Did Iran claim credit for doing this? What did Iran say? Is it possible that it was Syria that was firing back as opposed to being Iran? The papers didn't care. The papers didn't matter. Papers didn't even bring it up. At least the papers that I read last night didn't even bring it up. I look up today, and at the very least I do see a few that bring up the Iranian perspective, but it doesn't matter. The first story that you get to, the first bit of information that a person gets, it inserts into their brain as the way the world is, that's what sticks. It is very difficult to get a person to change their point of view and perspective on things once you've ensconced that into their head. And the fact is that very first story where you're saying Israel said this and this is what happened, and you go for the entirety of the story, essentially saying, as stenographers, the Israeli military said they did this. There's my story. Great. Print it. Where's the journalism in this? Where's the journalism? Does journalism just boil down to stenography? This person said this. Now I'm relaying what this person said to me. I don't need to add insight. I don't need to really get context. I don't even need to get the other side of it, the way whether it was true or not. I don't even need to take previous failures and lies into account when I'm analyzing the story. I don't even need to take the fact that these people have been killing civilians in mass. These people have an open-air ghetto. I don't need to take none of that into account when I'm relaying the story. I'm just going to be stenographers and just relay what they tell me to relay. This is pathetic from the standpoint of media, and it gives the wider audience no context. Israel has been attacking Iran for days. But that doesn't matter. In this case, oh my God, Iran responded. They're not supposed to respond to any provocation by Israel. They're not supposed to respond to any provocation at all. They're supposed to just sit there and get hit in the nose over and over and over again. That's what's supposed to take place. This is not this thing of protectivism of Iran. That's not my point. My point here has to do with the journalistic establishment relaying information. They're going to get us into a war. They're going to drag us into a war, not necessarily taking into account the other sides that are in this particular conversation. And there are other sides. You have no idea whether Israel is telling the truth or not. You have no idea whether there have been 20 rockets that fired. You don't know any of that stuff. And you're printing this as if it's the actual thing that's taking place, as if you know as a flat fact that it happened. Fact is, you don't. Fact is, you don't. And the last thing you know is whether it's attributable to Iran in the way that Israel is saying. You know they want to go into that country. You know they're looking for a justification for war. And none of that factors into what you're writing. None of it at all. That is profoundly pathetic. That is profoundly pathetic. I can't believe that this is what counts for journalism. There is no such thing as objectivity in this particular case. This is essentially them taking a side and relaying the information from that one particular side. You have two kids in a house, you talk to one kid. Bob and Ted are in a disagreement. Bob said that Ted grabbed his ass and slapped him. You, supposedly the objective person in this, go out to the press and say, well, Bob said, or Ted said, that Bob grabbed his ass and slapped him. And that's clearly that's just what he said. That's probably what took place. You never actually go to the other guy. Isn't it pertinent to go to the other guy to at the very least say, hey, did you grab his ass and slap him? Like, fuck, no, I didn't do that. I didn't do that at all. What the hell? If you know that these people are having a disagreement, if you know that these people have a penchant to lie, both have a penchant to lie, then why are you automatically going to take the word of one of the people who are just liars over one of the other liars? Where does journalism come into play? If the goal is not to get to the bottom of what is taking place, as opposed to just recounting what people are saying, especially when people have dogs in the hunt. I want to take a look at the story for a moment. All this other press is going to say that Israel said this, Israel said this, Israel said this. So fine. I gave you what Israel said in this when I did my report the other day. What did Iran say? Iranian military official denies firing rockets at Israel. Tehran has vowed revenge for previous strikes attributed to Israeli forces. A senior Iranian security official on Thursday denied that his country was behind a missile barrage fired from Syria at Israeli territory the previous night that prompted Israeli airstrikes against dozens of Iranian targets in Syria. Iran's Supreme National Security Council Deputy Head Abu al-Fald Hassan al-Baji said Iran had nothing to do with the missiles that struck the enemy entity yesterday, according to Al-Manar television network, which is affiliated with Lebanese terror group Hezbollah. Some 20 rockets were fired at northern Israeli military bases by Iranian forces from southern Syria just after midnight on Thursday, Israel said, prompting extensive retaliatory raids. I'm glad they say Israel said, and this is what Iran said. Be skeptical. Just be skeptical. Is it possible that Iran fired those rockets? Yes, of course it's possible. Is it possible that it was Syria that fired those rockets in retaliation for Israel striking Syria? That is also possible. That has been completely discounted by Western media apparently, but yeah, that is also possible. Is it possible that Israel is lying through its teeth? Yes, that is also possible. Be skeptical. That's all I'm saying. The skepticism is not built into the media establishment. Because ultimately, how can you have a war if the people are skeptical of what is taking place in regards to that conflict? And it's easier to sell more papers when you just say Iran did this, as opposed to saying Israel said Iran did this, but we don't necessarily know if that's true. Iran said it did this, and this is where we are, where, you know, and you're trying to get to the bottom of what took place. And you're not just talking about it. You have all of those armed, like you have, with all of the reach, all of the money that's behind the media, CNN, all of the reach, they have sources on the ground that can get to the bottom of the information, but they don't. Instead, we have stories that Israel said this, we save money, and we go about our affairs. It's not enough to say Israel said this. That's not really telling us what took place. That's telling us the version of the story that Israel and the Israeli military wants to get across. That's no different to me than military propaganda of we shot down X number of missiles. How do you know how many missiles they shot down? How do you know if they shot down any missiles at all? And oftentimes when militaries are saying that, they're just saying that to make themselves look better than what they actually are. I take Israel saying this to be the exact same thing, with the extra bonus that they want to go into that country. They're looking for a pretext to go into that country, and whatever they can use to come up with reasons for it, they're going to use. Does that also mean potentially a false flag? Yeah, potentially. All of that should be on the table. That's all I'm getting at. Ambiguity is not a horrible thing. Ambiguity is not a horrible thing. And I am completely opposed to creating hard narratives that people use to make other narratives, as opposed to really figuring out what took place. There's a chemical strike in Syria. The Syrian government had to do it. How do you know? How do you know? Well, I mean, we don't know, but we attacked them anyway. Mattis attacks, Donald Trump attacks Syria. Then Mattis comes out a year later saying we don't really know if Syria was responsible for the attack. This is kind of what I'm getting at. It's one thing to create a narrative. It's another thing to actually know what is taking place. Ambiguity is your friend in this, in trying to understand what's taking place. Not so much if you're just trying to write stories. Be skeptical. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Be skeptical. They're leading us into a war. Be skeptical. All right, I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to keep this one long. All right, guys. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks, guys.